Hearing of the Committee on Financial Services on our annual oversight hearing with the Secretary of the Treasury. I am delighted to welcome Secretary Paulson. I think all members of the committee who have had dealings with him during his tenure will agree that we have had a very constructive and cooperative relationship. We have made progress on a number of pieces of legislation in which the working relationship has been a good one. While there hasn't been complete agreement on things ranging from the bill for foreign investment in the U.S. through the GSE legislation, through focusing on how we can better help the FinCEN to work in ways that are best both for law enforcement and for the ease of the ability of the financial community to work. We have cooperated and look forward to that. The Secretary has obviously major responsibilities, and the frustration all of us will have, of course, is that 5 minutes won't be enough to get into all the issues. But I want to begin with what I think is a central issue, and I want to congratulate Secretary Paulson for helping try to engage in public education. Mr. Secretary, you said, I don't know, about a month ago, I read in the paper, or you were quoted as trying to explain to people for whom increased openness to the world economy and openness in trade was sort of obvious, why there was resistance. And you noted, not personally as your view, but to report to people, and that there is a degree of unhappiness that's become anger in many places among a lot of Americans about what they see as inequities in which growth goes forward, aided greatly by globalization, but the average citizen does not get to participate. And I believe that is one of our central problems. This is a strong and growing economy. My own view, by the way, is that the economy is much less subject to some of the policy changes we make here at the margins than people might think. We've had a strong economy under two very different administrations that pursued in many ways different policies. The American economy is a vigorous one. What has happened, however, is that there has been a growth in inequality. Inequality is, of course, not a bad thing. It is an essential element in a capitalist system, and the capitalist system is, without question, the best way ever stumbled upon, since no one specifically devised it, to promote the greater prosperity of the whole. But there have been, in recent years, increasing trends towards inequality. Now, there's a debate about what causes that. Some of it is the obvious result of trends in the economy, of globalization, of technology, of the great advantages that capital has in terms of its mobility. But we have in this country had, from certainly the New Deal days forward, institutional mechanisms that retarded the growth in inequality. They were never aimed at doing away with inequality, but they were aimed at countering what could be tendencies for it to get out of hand. I believe that inequality has clearly reached a dysfunctional stage in America. Not yet economically, although there is one related aspect. I hear from many of my friends in the financial community concerns that the saving rate is too low, that Americans don't save enough. Well, one prerequisite to be able to save is to have some money left over after paying your expenses so you can save it. And I believe that part of the problem we have seen is, well, people have not dropped their consumption yet. I think this is one of the reasons for the problems with a low savings rate on the part of the average citizen, which has consequences both for their retirements but also for the economy's ability to generate capital today. But while it's not clear yet what the economic consequences are, it is clear what the political consequences are. I am in general agreement with the President's approach to immigration. The bill, you would have said a year ago, okay, here's the deal. It's going to be President Bush and most of the Democratic leadership and a lot of the Republican leadership and the business community looks like a good chance to get a bill. Anger over increasing inequality, and I don't believe they are directly correlated, but people, when they are angry, don't always connect the dots in the straightest possible line. There is no question that the anger at a perceived unfairness in the distribution of our increased wealth is a contributing factor to the problems of the immigration bill. Here in the House, Chairman Rangel of the Ways and Means Committee and Chairman Levin of the Trade Subcommittee have been working with you and others, the USTR in particular, to come up with an approach to trade that would accommodate the concerns many of us had about the rights of working people and of the environment with trade. We're not completely there yet, but their efforts have gotten opposition from some people who say, oh no, the inequality situation is so bad here that nothing you can do can fix trade. In area after area, we have a resistance to policies that I know you believe are in our overall economic interest. Many of them I agree with you on, some I would disagree. And we've got to deal with the inequality. Now, we have reached a point, and I appreciate your acknowledging it, when I think people understand that we have more inequality than is necessary. Recent reports were that inequality by the common measure is greater than it has been since 1929. That means we are now back to being worse than it was under Hoover. Not in absolute terms, but in inequality terms. The question is, what do we do about it? And there are some who say nothing. There are some who say, well, education will take care of it. I think education is an important potential way of dealing with it, but can't carry the weight people give. Part of it has to do with institution. One is government, and we're going to do 20 minutes on each side, and I'm going to apportion the time appropriately. One issue is government. I do not think it is possible for us to diminish the growth of inequality to an excessive point while simultaneously denouncing and demonizing government and always calling for it to shrink. Education is an example. Yes, I do believe that a better spread of education for the new kinds of work can help diminish inequality. But the way in which we finance particularly higher education in America today reinforces inequality. It does not undercut it. As state after state after state cuts funding for the public universities, we suffer. Community colleges. Mr. Greenspan always cited community colleges as one of the best ways to give people the job training that will help them get the kind of jobs that aren't going to be outsourced, that are going to be good, solid, well-paying jobs. I have a community college in my district where we have a great need for nurses in the hospitals in Massachusetts. I have Bristol Community College, which has a great nursing program. Young people in the area who could do well as nurses, but they've only got 42 slots when they could use 3 or 4 times that many because the funding has been cut. It's a state-funded institution. You cannot simultaneously diminish government at all levels and cheer whenever it's cut and fund higher education in an equitable way. There are other things that we have to do that help. So government has to play a role. I do note, and I very much agree with your emphasis on debt relief and on doing more to help the impoverished countries. But do understand that in an era in which the budget is shrunk for the Department of Health and Human Services, in which we have to fight to get decent housing for older people, if you shrink all of those programs in the U.S., people shouldn't be surprised when there is resistance to our putting more money into our international obligations. You can't shrink the pot and then dip into it more deeply in some areas and not get that kind of resistance. The other area is labor unions. As long as many in the business community and on the Republican side have as their goal a constant shrinking of the role of labor unions, we will not get the kind of social peace in this country that we need if we're going to be able to come together in a pro-growth approach that diminishes inequality. And that's true both domestically and internationally. And one of my problems is within the World Bank, for example, if you look at their rating systems on the way in which they allocate IDA funds, if you look at the World Bank and IFC, countries get credit for not treating the workers very well. I mean, they don't say it explicitly, but the more of a social network there is for the workers, the more workers have protections against arbitrary firing, the more there are vacation days, etc. Literally, then people get downgraded. So I want to continue to work together on this agenda of a pro-growth agenda. I think this committee on both sides has shown an understanding of the importance of the financial sector in particular, the intermediation function that the financial community performs of gathering up money from a large number of people and making it available for capital investment. But we have got to do a better job of dealing with inequality. And while we now have an agreement that that's a problem, as long as there is a view that government's a bad thing and unions are worse, we will not make the kind of progress towards social cohesion in this country that will allow us substantially to diminish inequality and go forward. The gentleman from Alabama.